Hi, I'm Fitzgerald. I'm from Maryland, USA. I was diagnosed with a genetically mutated disorder that is progressive in the way my brain sends messages to cranial nerves. Doctors who studied this disease call it Riboflavin Transporter Deficiency. It is a medical condition that limits my ability to see, hear, walk. The symptoms of OCD have lasted since very young age. When I was 2 years old, I began to lose my balance and become legally deaf and blind. I am wheelchair bound and wear a cochlear implant. Shortly, I'm going to begin discussing about independent living for the physically disabled people. We are currently in a situation which many of us are facing due to change in movement of disability. The issue we have in society includes lack of services and the consumer rehabilitation support necessary to be addressed that nationalizes this group. During my visit to a friend of mine in Baltimore, I was pleased that he lives in his own apartment designed for the handicapped. This guy uses an manual wheelchair for most of the time to help him move around. He struggled for help going out in the community due to transportation failure, and he missed the opportunity to engage in daily activities outside of the building. Despite his mobility impairment, despite his initial time in the apartment trying for therapy and chat with his neighbors in the game arena. So I'm using his story as an example of what it's like for a physically handicapped person to live independently compared to those without disabilities. Throughout our history, disability rights activists run on the road to fight for policies that would remove environmental barriers. There's a lot of information I'll be giving on this topic. First, what is independent living? Some of you may say it is when you are living without your parents and that you are making decisions on your own. As we get older, we are taught to develop advocacy skills to build success talents in the future. Rain, some rain, thanks not to love with no help at all. The belief that disability is an issue creates stereotypes against them. The purpose of helping disabled people transition to independent living is by ensuring access to transportation and attendant care services. Throughout centuries, the federal and state governments focused on large-scale institutionalization. Since the expansion of the Rehabilitation Act of 1978, the majority of Americans with disabilities were moved from institutionalization to independent living. The advocacy for civil rights is so strong that activists are prone to making a difference in our lives and the world. The events that occurred in the 1960s and 1970s led to the rise of independent living movement. When I use the word disability, I have to say it does not mean sick or unhealthy. Handicapped says arise with doctors and therapists had no idea what was wrong with me, and then writing to learn more about my condition before providing resources to build success in my childhood. I was one of the kids in public school to be included under Section 504 according to the Rehabilitation Act of 1979, with the guidance of the civil rights law. My parents were confident I would attend a mainstream school with physical support to develop independent skills. I worked with a team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech pathologists to explore ways to function independently in the community. The cases of being physically disabled is a barrier, but when I see myself as independent, it's all about everything. It's about making decisions about where to live and work. It's about freedom and self-consciousness. Anyone can have equitable access to employment. Choosing a career requires careful thought and understanding your strengths based on current disability. This presents a challenge for many reasons depending on a degree of limitations each person experiences. Some people with mild to moderate disabilities tend to be less likely to this logistical barriers. Some individuals with severe disabilities require frequent medical supervision for respiratory support, including running a track by registered nurses. Historically speaking, centers for independent living have been around for a long time. Its mission is to maximize the independence and quality of life for these individuals by providing support and training, counseling, and other types of assistance that are most essential. The resources are community-based that can be found in a number of countries within each state. Personal care and adaptive living are part of an organization's priority. Housing is affordable and accessible to be provided through the centers. The context of independent living is based on the belief that people with disabilities can live with dignity, make their own decisions, and fully participate in society. I think of it as a natural life achievement because independence is just about right thing. It takes time and planning to prepare for the move. It's important to think about how you right to live and where you right to go. This helps you figure out the accessibility living of a building neighborhood property. Let's take a closer look at the three types of housing. Each of them offers a degree of accessibility which anyone is able to enter and move around the place. For some of you with the use of crutches, walkers, canes, and wheelchairs, you may find some housing suits difficult to settle. But the good news is that there are plenty of options to consider before deciding which one is most appropriate for each individual. The first is accessible housing, which allows anyone to enter the front doors and move around every room with space to fit the wheelchair. I would prefer this option because it's the only way to get in and out easily. Important design features for a fully accessible home include door ramps and the size of every room. Next, inaccessible housing that is run and run in a wheelchair has trouble entering and moving around. I have been to so many houses that require my parents to carry me over the flight steps, and indoors it means the ranks owned by 9 disabled residents have fewer accessible spaces than I thought they should. Many high schools have flights of stairs that a wheelchair cannot climb up and down. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Another thing I want you to know is mobility housing, like accessible housing, anyone who is able to enter would possibly have difficulty moving around in some locations. It's important to be aware of how much space you want to take to avoid overcrowding. I can recommend designing your overcome with pieces of paper and a pen. It is a great tool to predict the structure and accessibility of the type of housing that you choose. A bathroom that is 6 by 6 square feet with a door wide opening of 33 inches is one reasonable step so that a wheelchair will fit in, and that you have a right to transfer to a shower and back on. And to try to lower and height is optional. The placement of wheelchair ramps over the flight steps must be taken into account. The guidelines for designers and housing engineers should include measuring distances of items used by disabled people. Adaptive equipment can be installed in addition to making the property accessible. It's important to determine the kind of couches and climbing fixtures for appropriate disabled people of any specific type. Knowledge and empathy are necessary aspects of today's architecture and design to recognize environmental barriers. Designing a physical, supportive physical environment has broad awareness of how it affects the level of accessibility. Community agencies should provide information on mobility accommodations built by independent local agencies such as accessible transit stations and neighborhoods. Finding is the most fundamental issue of movement. With this in mind, I suggest trying to find the Section 8 subsidized rate will pay a small percentage towards the writing obligation, and the government pays the rest. Likewise, the affordability of housing depends on the average income and disabled person native. If an accessible apartment costs $1,500 a month to rent, and low-income tenant will probably need this type of federal aid. Lucy, housing can get very expensive at some point. Disabled people could need a barrier-free environment with minimal services, can purchase a single family home and adapt it to make housing units accessible as a land adult, for example, and live in a rural region where the notoriety of neighborhoods are unsuitable for wheelchairs, and I still need my parents' help with daily tasks. I plan to live in an accessible place like that. However, I'm not yet ready to move out of town because my house is an mobility type. It has been limited since I was a teenager. The first accommodation I had in place was putting in a ramp to roll my wheelchair in and out of the front door. Second, I paid for my driveway to be paved and a star-climbing electric trail to be installed. The goal of overcoming distance as a barrier has improved my mobility, and I'm able to use the equipment to maneuver. There's an interesting point mobility accommodations registry which I like to share with you. If you haven't heard of it before, here's what it does for the physically disabled people. They provide information on mobility accommodations. They maintain a list of barrier-free units that can be used by people of specific type of disabilities. It's interesting that those tenants who right to consider those units can live in an accessible neighborhood of no choice and have a barrier-free lifestyle. When people ask who is eligible throughout those minutes when I would suspect that there are non-separate types of housing. The registry has the biggest responsibility in ensuring adequate access to apartments and other buildings, but some people struggle to find a particular location. The child suits available. For example, when I first went into the building, I found an elevator near the entrance, and it reminded me of the time when the converted nurses into a fully accessible apartment. That's good because the did was following the guidelines from the Centers for Independent Living. In some cities where there is no registry, housing would become unsafe for wheelchair users, and the government agency that does not take the requirements seriously can lead result and consequences. We must work together in an effort to better understand the relationships between disabled people and the kind of support they receive when visiting one of the best facilities ever. Someone living there told me about his interactions with the environment. I looked around the apartment and saw a large bar to nurses to leap out of his wheelchair to bed every night. He is unable to cook his own meals due to neurological impairment. In general, the only kind of food he can eat include frozen dishes that don't require being cooked in a frying pans or ovens. The next concept of independent living I'm going to explain is maximum distances to contact. There are three distinct forms of them. This information will provide examples of contacts to various places that disabled residents encounter differently from those who are able-bodied. Traveling is a typical barrier for many people with mobility issues, although they will have the support and notifications to achieve the goal of reaching them, and encourage you to learn about accessible transportation and methods that enable us to help them become independent in the community. Let's start with distances. within facilities, but for a minute about that neurological served an assisting level facility that if neuron in a building that is way too large to reach contacts, it is often believed that facility discusses underlying some people the location of a facility is a such plot placed in a geographic area for people with mobility impairment. A facility location problem must be solved efficiently by minimizing distances to sites that are placing too much space would mean having limited access to a complex building. Okay, so now let's switch to the next category. Distances to primary contacts. It includes frequent and essential trips to grocery stores, doctors' offices, pharmacies, banks, and transit stations need to be accessible through handicapped travelers. The problem that mass transportation should be recognized as it becomes unavailable. The efforts to making transportation accessible is key to meeting the needs of mobility impaired. Service projects have been done by added wheelchair lifts and tandems to buses and vans. Perhaps the best solution to address mobility barriers would be to select neighborhoods with the closest buildings. Keep in mind that not everyone has access to traveling anywhere, which is why recognizing barriers is extremely important. It is not quite surprising when David and my child down is it as much transportation, public transportation available as in suburbs like Ellicott City and Columbia. I rode a special bus to and from school with support from a bus assistant. I was sitting across the aisle from a passenger in a wheelchair, and we were able to get down at the same time as most able-bodied students. Transit buses are expensive to use often, and they have to be booked hours and days in advance depending on where you're going. Because of membership, I was told by my parents I should get my driver's license as a 16-year-old. To be honest, I am lucky enough to have a family and friends to transport me around the community by themselves. So when a disabled person from this local apartment to the closest grocery store, the period of time it takes to calculate the trip is critical for each individual to overcome the limits of traveling to these places. The total distance in sunrise in every trial to only spends 5 minutes, and the store is that to be at least 800 feet in terms of transportation and crossing the streets. Some people go slower than others, which they stop and rest on the way. If you get tired of walking over longer distances, then you feel like you need to sit down for a few minutes until you have the energy back for anyone with severe mobility needs. It's always a good idea to consider trying to find for a mobility scooter or an electric wheelchair to move around faster than usual and used to have run at a very young age. Now I am required to rely on people to push me wheelchair around in public for safety. The reason I stopped using an electric wheelchair since high school was that I didn't have an vehicle to transport it. So I had to have the assistance with my mobility not frequently, but I am hopeful that someday there will be advanced technologies as a scientific breakthrough that will ease mobility barriers of people with physical disabilities to help them get around without fear. Next is distances to secondary contact. It's not as important as distances to previous forms of contact. If you enjoy going to movies and attended special events, workers that are responsible for hosting those activities should understand that is in the best interest of people in wheelchairs and provide them an opportunity to participate. Other examples include parks, zoos, museums, concert halls, and government offices. most of these places I've visited throughout in the time on real-time accessible. I've also been to inaccessible locations that prevent me from getting there. It's because no one knows how to adapt environments designed for the handicapped. It's a wrong sign of being selfish and turning them into objects. When I write in my opinion on people with disabilities deserve independence and freedom. When I went out with my friends, I had to make sure there were handicap parking spaces left before I could permit it. My favorite memory that filled me with joy and independence was attending junior and senior prom with my best friend at the Baltimore National Aquarium, which is fairly accessible. After my aunt's confirmed student event, I was happy to go and have fun. Now let's talk about personal care services. Remember, there's plenty of options out there in which anyone can receive them. I'm going to show you the two separate categories of independent living service delivery. These include attendant care and home health care. The values and assumptions of both models are just important in identifying the severity of disability. People can care and find attendance of their choice, ranging from 2 to 6 hours per day. Many state reform agencies have limited funding to provide services, so it helps to manage and sustain the budget to direct them. I have a friend who has limited disease called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and she is currently having difficulty during daily living activities and could size shoulder got frozen from the surgery. A good friend I learned from her was that she found the right PCA to help her with daily tasks. The roles attendants play in living independently provide assistance in bathing, getting dressed, meal preparation, and household chores. Like I said, attendant care is a survival right. You need to recognize it as an exception according to neuro disabled people should no needs around information adequacy of the town and direct the providers of service. The difference between current health services and attendant time is the ability for a recipient to direct their time. Self-direction is probably not something that would be involved within a health services network. This is because the emphasis on having responsible for supervising duties provided by current health aid. I know a lot of people registered nurses that are needed every day for respiratory assistance and some people with disabilities require health time coverage as a source of community that will happen with the health services is that you will need to communicate with a doctor to plan for treatment and be supervised by a nurse. I would not think of it as a fan service, although eligibility is determined through medical assessments of a patient who is in general. Everyone must have access to health benefits to keep us alive, even though we may not always have the funding to receive quality care. Many of you have heard of Medicaid, which is what I'm covered on. It is a program regulated by the federal government. The distribution of funding goes to the Social Security Administration that provides unemployment benefits for the elderly and disabled. I qualified for SSI and Medicaid by the time I graduated high school, so I was permitted to receive personal care services both at home and in the community. I pay $20 an hour for my aides and 18 hours per week. When I'm lucky to have a family around to provide support. Most of the time, furthermore, having the responsibility to manage my personal time has maximized my independence. Another independent living service I like to teach you about is peer counseling. If you feel isolated and frustrated regarding the stigma of disability, it would be a nice thing to connect with under disabled people to learn about the experiences that relate to you. It helps to communicate with someone who understands his local feelings in a particular situation that he or she knows how to address successfully. Prioritizing is an important concept of independent living. It is a form of personal involvement in terms of a wide range of approaches. In fact, disabled persons are formally trained and carried by rehabilitation agencies, counseling and active planning are part of the person's role that contribute to effective intervention. The tribe is to help clients set goals, manage personal time and accessibility, and most importantly, they provide information and community resources. It's pretty simple, right? Persons are trying to find front row because they serve as specialists and centers for independent living that help severely disabled clients make a successful transition to community living. For instance, I have plans to talk to who share similar experiences with autism, and I'm writing to ask them about the kind of assistive technology they use, because I know that helps us adapt to our personal achievement. One of them starting a Facebook support group a few years ago with an opportunity to connect with others who have autism and discuss their feelings about themselves. And we planned an discussion post with good advice. I trust and always trust someone who is looking for support, and I do what I can help. Thus, counseling is an invaluable option that disabled people can benefit from. The ability to communicate with others by sending conversational messages and reading has improved my independence skills. Just like people with autism, those of other groups can overcome their barriers in the same way as long as they receive appropriate services and technologies. It's possible to compare to each individual, but it's important that we do not discriminate and not perfect. However, I always stand up for what I really need in order to ensure an accessible education and daily living. as a reminder, a combination of prioritizing and management of personal care and transportation services is ideal for severely disabled people could experience multiple barriers. Okay, so now let's start thinking this way. Those still look to be done to change the world, building a better future than include creating advanced rehabilitation programs that provide more than just simple services for independent living people working in the field should apply their understanding of concepts and conduct in practice with the clients and encourage you to use your learnings to integrate services that will maximize independence and areas like health care, education, social work, and rehabilitation. Research must be done to develop solutions and planning to design and create programs as an alternative to institutional living. It's all about helping disabled people switch to independent living rather than placing them in an institution so they can enjoy new life while receiving the support they need. Let's stop treating them like enemies. We are here to support every situation. It's my pleasure to speak with you, and I hope this information gives you a better idea on how to help disabled individuals maximize good quality of life. Thank you.